Welcome to Fringe, the PeopleForward Network home show where we spotlight bold voices in leadership. I'm Lucy, the podcast production manager here at PFN. On Fringe, we celebrate the power of great conversations that move people forward. With that, we invite podcast hosts, even those outside of our own network, to share leadership episodes they consider their favorite. These are the moments that they're most proud of, and we're here to amplify this greatness. Our goal is to shine a light on meaningful voices, broaden the reach of important ideas, and connect you with conversations that can spark change. It's one more way that we live out our mission, helping people experience meaningful work. I hope you love this episode, and if you do, go follow their show.
How do we make work suck less? That's why we're doing it, and we couldn't be more excited to go on this journey with each and every single one of you. Welcome to the official CultureCon podcast, where we explore how work actually works.
We're your hosts, Zach Blumenfeld
and Nick Lombardino.
Whether you're leading a team, shaping culture, or just passionate about making work more meaningful, you're in the right place.
Each episode will bring you stories, insights, and bold ideas from people who are building better workplaces and better work experiences.
The official CultureCon podcast starts now.
Look at us, dude. The first official CultureCon podcast episode.
We did it.
We did it. This is going to go off the rails so quickly. But I think a good starting point to keep you and I focused and just kind of framing out how CultureCon got started, kind of what our origin story is, and then like let that feed into why we're here right now doing this podcast. So tell us, Zach Blumenfeld, how CultureCon came to be, because this was your brainchild.
Yeah, so it's crazy to think like over a decade now was really the first ever idea for CultureCon. I was part of a startup in the HR tech world called Third Space, and we were building a software to help solve different organizational culture challenges, mainly employee engagement, personal professional development. And before we had software, we would have these executive roundtables, inviting people from all over and just kind of pressure test ideas to make sure we were on the right track. And I got really passionate about these conversations. And I thought with such a humanistic challenge that we're trying to solve, like culture, software wasn't going to do it all on its own. There had to be a human element to it. And I could see how these executives would get really passionate. The conversations would last, they'd be scheduled for about an hour and a half, and they'd always run late, sometimes going hours over. And I could see that we were onto something with these little mini groups. And so I pitched my co-founders on, hey, this software is great, but what if we just kind of expanded these conversations, these roundtables we're having? They wanted to stick with software, and ultimately one of them connected me with you, and you were the first person I really pitched CultureCon to. And I'm very glad you said yes, because here we are today.
Well, I think why I was so willing to say yes in the beginning was just when you described those roundtables to me, it just sounded like once the conversation started, people were so eager to want to be able to help one another in the room when somebody would come forward with some sort of workplace culture challenge or opportunity that they were trying to navigate. And so like when you kind of shared this concept of like people sharing templates and tools and connections with each other, all just through some structured intentionality around, talking about workplace culture. For me, it was like, all right, dude, sounds like you did all the marketing research for us. How can I help? So credit to you for just kind of seeing the vision on how these types of microcosm could be extrapolated into something that, we brought to life in 2018. So I think we have to tell the people, you and I have no experience in event planning.
Zero.
And we like to say that we still feel like we have zero experience doing it. But I think it's fun to kind of reflect on what that first experience was, that first event that we had in 2018. Why don't you tell folks about our pilot, our test?
Yeah, so we followed the, standard lean startup canvas to a T, and we wanted to pressure test this idea a little further before moving forward with a larger event. So we decided February in Madison, if we could get 50 people in the room, we would move forward with planning the larger event in the summer. And I think we planned it on Valentine's Day.
Sure did. Great day.
There was
to
a
do it,
blizzard. Yeah, but it worked. We had to expand the room size. We had over 100 people in the room there. I think the only feedback was that the drink ticket was only good for Budweiser, and people didn't like that.
That's probably a Wisconsin thing.
Yeah, Wisconsin thing for sure. But yeah, it went off really well and had a lot of people there. And so we decided to move forward just a few months later and plan our first ever CultureCon. This was June of 2018, so just over 7 years ago.
June of 2018. And what were some of like our biggest lessons learned from coming out of that first large event?
So many. So many.
Nick and Zach shouldn't host conferences. Was that the first lesson?
I'm really surprised we moved forward with a CultureCon 2019 after that. I was just surprised. I remember you and I standing in the back of the room we had this panel over lunch, and it was Culture the Madison Way, and kind of showcase some executives from local companies in Madison, Wisconsin, and why Madison is such an awesome place to be. And just looking at the room, I had serious imposter syndrome. Like, why are there so many people here? Like, how did we do this? And it was just cool to see all those people who were so passionate about making work better for people, just be in the same room together. And I think we learned a lot from that conference, both on like event structure, but also like what we were building kind of shifted. Like when we first built it, we really thought it was going to be an HR conference. We thought maybe someday this would be like a mega thousands of people type conference, but we quickly realized people liked the kind of intimate touch, being just a few hundred people, and that it wasn't just HR. HR is probably half of the conference if you add in like culture, people, workplace experience type titles, but it brought in a wide variety of leaders, people leaders who were just passionate about the topic. And that was really cool and really enhances the culture of CultureCon.
Yeah, it's like that first event, I think, really helped us land on what our ethos was as an organization because of the people that were in the room and because of what you just said, like the diversity of individual. So, people from all different types of industries and roles, just kind of rallying around this idea of like, how do we make work more meaningful for ourselves and those around us? And so to your point, like, I know our assumption going into the event was like, oh, this is going to be predominantly HR people that are probably going to come because historically maybe HR has been kind of the gatekeeper of workplace culture. But yeah, like, we soon realized that that's not the case. Like this is a much, much bigger movement beyond the four walls of HR, right? And so I think that was a really good light bulb moment for us on how we could keep pursuing programming that speaks to everybody. That was actually a gift right out the gate. So why does that bring us to today? Why are we doing this podcast, and what connections does it have with the conferences that we host?
Yeah, I think it's cool to have this podcast for many different reasons, but one of the big things is we're known for our events, which are in person. There's live streams and things like that, but outside of that, we want to keep these stories going, keep connecting with our community. So it's a way to kind of outside of these in-person conferences, continue to share these stories from culture geeks, as we like to call them, and keep the conversation going.
Yeah, because our events, we're so fortunate and blessed to have like truly world-renowned speakers that are coming and sharing their thought leadership and really pragmatic next steps and frameworks on how people can take action. So it's like, I feel like the speakers themselves often generate a lot of excitement and enthusiasm for people coming to the conference. But then when you're at the conference, what we've learned is like the magic of it is really kind of like these wild synchronicities and connections that happen among attendees and even attendees to speakers. So it's like when we try and study what that magic is, I think at the heart of it, we've learned is just like impactful stories that make this bridge between people connecting. And so it just made a ton of sense for us to try and bring those stories forward outside of the four walls of our conferences and do it in kind of a regular cadence year round. So that's why we're doing the podcast. We're just so excited and eager to be able to share more of these really moving stories and ideas with people in hopes that it can spark more conversation for you and more connection for you with your peers and your friends and your colleagues, just to try and make work more meaningful. Sometimes our community says, how do we make work suck less? And that's kind of a fun idea to play around with. But that's why we're doing it. And we couldn't be more excited to go on this journey with each and every single one of you. So I think we'd be remiss if we didn't at least highlight some of the craziest things that have happened as part of our CultureCon history and our conferences in the past. And the one I want to start with, Zach, was CultureCon 2019. I think this is more of a you story because I didn't sleep at the hotel that night. Why don't you tell them what happened at CultureCon 2019?
So this was July 2019. So you can imagine in Madison, Wisconsin, very hot, very humid. This is second conference we've ever had, and we always end with an after party. This was at Cask and Ale, one of my favorite bars and whiskey lounges on State Street in Madison, and had a great time there. Stayed out a little too late, but made it back to the hotel room perfectly fine. And I wake up a little earlier than I usually do because it's really, really hot in my hotel room. And my hotel room, one window is facing down East Washington. And there happens to be like a generator or power plant that sits a couple blocks from the venue. And so I get up out of bed. First thing I do is like drink some water. And then I go over to the thermostat and I'm pushing it to turn it down, but I realize that it's not on and I can't turn it on. So I'm like, this is weird. Like, what's going on? And I open the blinds and there's just black smoke. Like, I don't know what's going on. Did a bomb drop? Did something blow up? And then I open my door just because I hear people like running in the hallway, and people have like glow sticks and candles because all the power's out. And I'm like, just so confused what's going on. Nate Basso was across the hall staying over that night too. And like, he opens his door and we're both really confused. And then we later find out that, it was like the Madison Gas and Electric power plant that sits on East Wash exploded.
Yeah, they had like two transistors or so. I'm just making up words now, but there's like two things that exploded in two different locations across Madison and just fried the grid down the isthmus. And so, dude, that was a wild day after for the conference, because it was like we had to move things out of the venue without the luxury of an elevator or
no elevators,
central air in the pitch black, right? So like that was crazy. But I remember the entire time you and I just had huge smiles on our faces because we were like, had this happened 24 hours earlier, we would have been just totally screwed. Like, I don't know what we would have done. That would have been crazy.
I hope to never know.
All right, I'll share my favorite story, which was architected by you, but I have to share it from my own perspective. So my favorite CultureCon story, which is probably like a top 5 life moment for your friend Nick here, was just like 6 or 7 months ago when we were hosting CultureCon West 2024 in Las Vegas. This is very early on day 2 of our conference. Zach and I are down on the conference floor at probably 6 a.m. and I have all of my nervous energy going hot and heavy. And Zach looks over and he's like, hey, dude, I think it'd be a good idea for us to just get out of the building. Let's get some coffee and let's just kind of go for a walk down the Las Vegas Strip. And I was like, that sounds like a good idea. There's a bunch of stuff I wanted to still do, but I was like, man, that does sound like a great idea. Just kind of get out of here and see the sky and stretch our legs type of thing. So we leave Planet Hollywood. We probably take, 20 steps out onto Las Vegas Boulevard. And I start talking about God knows what related to the conference. And Zach goes, oh, dude, what is that? And he kind of points over my shoulder and I turn around and I look at this massive marquee display on the Las Vegas Strip with a high resolution picture of Nick and Zach embraced in a very intimate hug where I'm like halfway down your waist, like hugging your belly button, and you're kind of above me, cradling my shoulders. And this was a photo that we've taken we kind of have this tradition of taking ridiculous photos with one another to kind of celebrate the end of each conference. But now I see it on the marquee on the Las Vegas Strip. And not only that, I realize it's not just a photo, it's actually like a 20-second long CultureCon commercial promoting the conference in Las Vegas. And the production value was incredible. And I'm just sitting there, I'm crying now because I'm like laughing so hard. And the fact that this is even a reality was just like too much for me to handle emotionally. And so that was a lot to take in. But the best part of the story was learning that you had negotiated with whoever you call to get displays and ads up on the Las Vegas Strip. You had negotiated with them that you would pay for it for one day. But it must have been a slow news week in Las Vegas because they ended up playing that for like a week nonstop, even after we left the conference. So like, there's the photo the night that Mike Tyson and Jake Paul had that fight in Las Vegas. And it's like, it's a nighttime shot and somebody got the photo of like us hugging up next to the marquee of the Mike Tyson, Jake Paul fight advertisement. Oh my gosh, dude, that was incredible. I don't know. We probably peaked at that moment in time. I don't know how we're going to one up that.
Yeah, there's no way.
Oh God. So good, dude. So good. Well, okay. So this is what I think we should do is probably give the listeners a little bit of a preview of some of the topics that we want to bring forward. Thought leaders in our networks. These are individuals who have maybe spoken at CultureCon in the past or have just been longtime strategic partners of ours. Let's kind of give them an idea, a flavor of what type of content we're going to be putting on this podcast, and just maybe a little bit about what these common threads or themes are that are in hot demand right now for us to program around.
Yeah, I think that's what I'm most excited for about this entire podcast is just like, at the conferences, we're so busy running around, putting out fires that we don't get to listen to a lot of the actual presentations. And now we get to like interview some of the best speakers and thought leaders in this space. So that's really cool to me. Also, the people that we're going to be interviewing them on topics that our community has always said, they want more of. So topics like AI is really hot, DEI, employer brand, employee recognition, lots of topics that our community has requested more of. And then our partners that are helping make this possible, we obviously couldn't do it without them. So 2 of the mini series that are going to be on our podcast with our friends at Fauna and Advisa. I'm really excited, looking forward to those.
Totally. Yeah. And I think it's kind of cool that one of our first podcast guests, Nathan Stuck, is somebody who's an expert in kind of the B Corp movement and social entrepreneurship and intrapreneurship. And I think that's worth mentioning because that is something that has become kind of a really intriguing topic, not only through our programming, but something that a lot of companies of all shapes and sizes are starting to deploy internally that has a ton of workplace culture and employee engagement undertones to it. So just really quickly, maybe let's call out what that is. So social entrepreneurship, in short, is just being able to tap your employees, their unique passions and causes that are important to them, and giving them space and time to be able to think of new ideas where not only is that idea going to generate some sort of economic gain for the business, but then simultaneously it does something to solve a social or environmental problem. So that's super cool when that happens inside of companies, because when you do this inside of companies, in theory, you're being able to take advantage of the resources and the connections that the company can help to facilitate, as opposed to if you're trying to do this all by yourself, it could be a lot more hurdles and obstacles in your way. So being able to take advantage of company resources and connections to think of new and novel ideas that not only help the company drive value from a business perspective, but also solve social and or environmental problems. So that's like one very specific let's just say programming topic that's gaining a lot of traction right now among our community. And one of our very first episodes will be with a gentleman, Nathan Stuck, that'll dive more into that. So couldn't be more excited. And like Zach said, it's just going to be a wide variety of workplace culture topics, because as you know, culture can be a very gooey thing, for lack of a better word. So certainly a lot of topics related to leadership development and upskilling and employee engagement and candidate experience and employer brand. So a lot coming down the pipeline here in the weeks to come. Okay, so now that we're getting close to the end of this kickoff episode, I think we should let everybody know what our plan is for having a consistent question that we ask each and every guest on our podcast. And that question is, do you believe in ghosts? Just kidding. But we might ask that. Okay. The question that we're actually planning on asking everybody, which came to us literally yesterday, was we'd like for folks to recognize someone in their life, a mentor, a family member, just an individual who has left a lasting impression on them. And so I'm going to put you on the spot, ZB. Is there somebody in your past that jumps to mind who's kind of left a lasting impact on you, who's kind of shaped the way that maybe you pursue work or your personal endeavors?
Nick Lombardino.
All right, let's end the podcast.
That's what I want to say. But I also, one other person popped into my mind. His name was Mike Nelson. He was my first boss out of school. So first job I ever had post-college, and I got hired at a company that made industrial forklift battery chargers. And I went to school for sport management, so knew nothing about that. And he hired me. We just really hit it off in the interview process. And I remember, like, now that I'm kind of in the culture world, like even some of the questions he would ask me in the first and second interview were like more personal and like about my work ethics and kind of like culture questions, not really about the products or electrical engineering, which I knew nothing about. So yeah, we hit it off. He hired me, was one of my first mentors in that job, and just got to see like an incredible leader, you know, do his thing for the first 2 years of my career. And yeah, we still stay in touch a little bit today. When I proposed to Carly in Paris, he recommended the restaurant I go to after we got engaged. So took him up on that recommendation. It was really good. And yeah, he just has provided kind of a blueprint for what I think is an awesome leader and mentor. And yeah, it was really an experience I'm very grateful for.
That's awesome, dude. Yeah, I always kind of pegged you for a forklift battery guy, so that I think that makes a lot of sense. What were some of Mike's personality traits that kind of like pulled you into his orbit?
That's a good question. I think they were very similar to mine, and that's why we bonded. Like, he liked sports, and we were on the road a lot, traveling, so got to know each other really well. Humor, he was more of a coach than really like a, you know, this is what we're going to do. Cause I really like had to learn a lot about electrical engineering. Sales, I kind of had experience in, but still from his, you know, decades more experience than I had, learning from him. And just, yeah, the way to lead and, you know, be someone that can coach people instead of just kind of tell them what to do. So I felt empowered in my work, and I've always brought that with me in other jobs when I'm managing people too.
That's great. I see a lot of similarities between the individual that I'm going to highlight. I think being young, probably of a similar age as you, and kind of wanting to be a sponge and being impressionable to the leaders and people around you. I think that's probably why these individuals, one of the reasons why these individuals maybe hit us as impactfully as they did. So yeah, for me, it was a professor I had in undergrad and graduate school here in Madison. His name was Dr. Dennis Collins. He passed away about 5 years ago. His legacy still lives very strong because he was thought of as kind of a nationally renowned organizational ethicist. So when I was in college, I think maybe loosely I knew what organizational culture was, but certainly not at a great depth. But what I was fascinated about, and still am to a large degree, is just like social anthropology, human behavior. And that's what Dr. Collins' class was really all about. It was a business ethics class. And really what he was trying to do was create more tools and frameworks to help organizations and the individuals that work in those organizations to make ethical decisions. And when you say ethical decisions, it's considering things like impacts to community, impacts to other stakeholders, impacts to employees, right? And so I think it was just like this really, really fascinating, it was popping the hood for me, for lack of a better term, is just like it gave me visibility into all the inner workings within an organization where human behavior had great sway over what's going to happen within that company. And he grew up on the East Coast. He was a smaller in stature, but a big personality, and just so passionate about trying to help people make the right decisions within their company so that it could provide some level of greater altruistic good, both in the four walls of that company and then in the community and world as a whole. So I think my passion for workplace culture was seeded through Dr. Dennis Collins, and now, of course, our fascination and desire to learn more about social entrepreneurship and how we can feed that through CultureCon as much as possible. I have Dr. Collins to thank for a lot of that. So there it is, everybody. That's kind of the anchoring point that we want to leave each episode with a lot of our interview guests. We just think it's a fun way to get some grounding, and obviously a high dose of inspiration and good storytelling with these incredible leaders that we're going to be talking to. So I don't know, ZB, how do you think we did? 25 minutes?
Probably not great, but hopefully we get a couple listeners.
So yeah, there we go. Nice. All right, everybody. Well, thank you for tuning in to the very first episode of the official CultureCon podcast with Nick and Zach. Can't wait to go on this journey with each and every one of you, and we will talk to you soon.
Talk to you soon.
Bye. That's a wrap on this episode of the official CultureCon podcast.
If you got something out of it, share it with a friend, teammate, or fellow culture geek.
And don't forget to hit subscribe so you never miss an episode.
Until next time.